Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and this video where I'm going to go through my plans for the next few game weeks all the way up to the new year, which is going to be game week 20. This is something that I do usually by myself, not really on video. I plan ahead just to make sure that my team is not going to be hampered in the future by transfers that I do in the upcoming few game weeks. And I want to do it for you guys as well. So any of you guys that want me to go through your teams and do a video about them, I'm going to do that later this week, I'm imagining. And all you have to do is basically just go down in the comment section and send me your FPL ID. And then I'm going to try to make a video with 3 or 5 managers, I guess, which is going to come out later on the week, most likely Thursday or Friday. So yeah, I'm going to try to do that for you guys. So if you're interested in doing that, then go down to the comment section and give me your FPL ID. If you don't know how to get your FPL ID, I can probably put it in the description how you find it in this video. So you can send it to me and I can help you out with your future game weeks basically. But if your team is pretty similar to mine, you probably don't have to do it because I have some pretty certain plans for the next few game weeks ahead. So I'm going to go through that in this video. I'm also going to go through what happened in game week 12 and have a bit of a recap of that. I usually do that in the team selection video, which I post on Friday. But this way I have to talk about it a little bit less on Friday, I guess. I'm still going to go through it on Friday, but I'm going to go through it in depth this time around in this video, basically. So yeah, first of all, game week 12 was not the best for me, but still not the worst either. A small red arrow from around 220k down to 266k. And I was basically down to one major mistake that I did. I had 3 major decisions and 2 of them I got right, but the one captaincy decision basically is the one I got wrong between Salah and Palmer. I ended up selecting Palmer as captain, mostly down to the fact that I had gone differential last week with Bruno Fernandes and gotten rewarded for it with 17 points from Bruno Fernandes compared to the 14 points that Salah got. So I only gained 3 points from that decision basically. And this time around, I got 2 points from Palmer rather than 11 or 13 points from Salah, which is an 11-point difference. So I lost 11 points this time around. So actually, all in all, between game week 11 and game week 12, my captaincy has cost me basically 8 points between the 2 game weeks from not picking Salah instead of the optional candidate that I went for basically. So I feel kind of hard done by, but at the same time, it could have been much worse as well because Salah had some pretty big chances to score even more goals after he did score that second goal. He also celebrated by taking off his shirt and got a yellow card, which also dropped him 1 bonus point. So in the end, I guess I could say that I was a bit unlucky, especially with Palmer, who was just really frustrating to watch, especially with Madueke being in the way of him scoring a certain goal for Palmer. I said right before the goal to my friend Kevin, who I do the podcast with, I told him that Madueke is always the worst player for me because last season there was a game week pretty like in the middle of the season when Palmer was still like really popular and everyone had him basically, but it wasn't like a certainty that I was going to score goals every single time. And I had too many good players in one particular game week and I had to bench him. And I was the game against Luton when he managed to get, I think, 2 goals and 1 assist, got 16 points in that game. Absolutely crushing for me with him on first bench. And in that game, Madueke had several chances to pass the overlap to Gusto, which was the more correct play to do. But instead he shot it from impossible angles and scored and was playing like prime Arjen Robben basically. So Madueke has always been in the way for me in terms of points, and Chelsea have always been a cursed team for me, and that was the same thing this time around. Palmer had that huge chance. I was also pretty annoyed that he wasn't in the best positions to score goals because Enzo Fernandez got 1 goal and 1 assist from this game and was in those 2 positions for those 2 goals where I thought Palmer was going to be, but Enzo Fernandez was sometimes the second furthest player up the pitch for Chelsea behind Nicholas Jackson, who was absolutely amazing in this game week, by the way. So yeah, Palmer, disappointed. Sanchez as well, terrible start to the game week. And I just had to laugh when Chelsea conceded a penalty towards the end of the game after not conceding that many chances at all through the game. Sanchez also could have saved the penalty and gotten me like 10 more points from that, or 11 points even more from that. So yeah, not the best game with Chelsea, not the best start to the game week. Then luckily I come down to the other big decision that I made, or the 2 other big decisions that I made. I was between buying Ait Nouri as my defender for Trent or Digne, and Digne ended up being benched for Aston Villa. So thankfully I went to Ait Nouri, even though he only got 2 points. So I only gained 1 point from that exchange. But the more important thing was the fact that I decided to bench Raul Jimenez and start Matheus Cunha for the game between Wolverhampton and Fulham. Basically down to the fact that Cunha was in such good form and Jimenez was not, basically, and that is what proved to be the major thing in that game as well, because Cunha absolutely amazing. Scored twice, I think, and had an assist, 16 points. Fantastic from Cunha. And Raul Jimenez missed a major chance and got only 2 points. So luckily, that gained me 14 points. So that makes up for the captaincy decision between Palmer and Salah, where I was pretty much set on Palmer throughout the whole week. Because in my team selection video, I actually had Raul Jimenez as my starter rather than Cunha. But after realizing that Raul Jimenez played a lot of minutes on the Wednesday for Mexico, I decided to bench him for the more fit and ready Cunha. And that ended up helping me a lot in this game week. So that basically saved it from being a terrible game week, because apart from Cunha and Salah, obviously, who was a detriment to my team, didn't really get too many points. I did finally get a clean sheet from Gabriel with 6 points. I was really happy to see that. And I was also happy to see Watkins get 7 points, but he could have had a lot more because he had 2 pretty big chances. Watkins scored one of them and missed the other one. And that also meant that he only got 1 bonus point, so he ended up with 7 points in total. But if he had scored that other goal, he would have had all 3 bonus points, and he would have had, 6 more points from that. He would have had 13 points, which would have been amazing, obviously, because Watkins is one of my biggest differentials in this whole game, basically. But apart from that, pretty poor game week. The same also with the goalkeeper, where I had Fabianski as the backup, and he got a clean sheet for West Ham against Newcastle. I was happy about that as a West Ham fan. West Ham looked a lot better at St. James's Park than I expected them to be. And also Mykolenko once again getting a clean sheet on my bench, and Lewis getting 0 points as my starter. Yeah, I have to learn that lesson by now, that Lewis is just not a good player to have in FPL currently. Man City are just terrible defensively. I just watched them now in the Champions League, conceding 3 times in 15 minutes against Feyenoord. So yeah, I just have to start backing Mykolenko rather than Lewis, but that's not really the best for now either, because Mykolenko has some pretty tough matches coming up, as we'll see with my future game week plans, basically. So let's go into that instead. Let's look into the future for my team and my plans for the next upcoming game weeks. And I do that by going to a site that I use normally, which I'm going to show you, which is fpl.team, which is a really nice game planner. If you're not subscribed to Fantasy Football Hub or something like that, fpl.team is, for me, the best fantasy Premier League transfer planner tool that you can use, basically. And I'm going to use it to show you my plans for my team for the next few game weeks, pretty much. So this is my current setup. I have 1 free transfer only. I have used a lot of transfers the last few game weeks, so I don't really have any saved up transfers at all. But I do have 2.1 million in the bank, which is going to be pretty handy for me, I think, for the next few game weeks. So yeah, I'm going to go through all the game weeks and tell you what I'm going to do in terms of transfers. So game week 13 is coming up, and this is a transfer that I had basically penciled in before this past game week, but obviously it's a move that most people would do now quite easily, and that is selling Raul Jimenez and buying the main man currently, which is Joao Pedro, who has been absolutely fantastic since coming back. Got a goal and assist in the match against City, got a goal and an assist as well in this past match against Bournemouth as well, and he plays Southampton at home, so that's pretty much a no-brainer move. It even saves me some money because he is still a bit cheaper than Raul Jimenez. I probably should have done that transfer earlier, but at the same time, there's Champions League games going on. Gabriel Magalhaes, for example, had to be subbed off. I don't think it's a serious injury, so I don't think there's any threat to him not playing. But yeah, it's always nice to wait and see, because there might be some other transfers that I have to do instead, rather than doing the transfer that I want to do, and that's Raul Jimenez to Joao Pedro. So that is also something that I should tell you for this video, basically a caveat for what you should keep in mind, that sometimes you have plans for the future that are going to be ruined by injuries and other things presenting themselves. Sometimes it's a good kind of problem if you get a player that's playing really well and you want to keep him longer. For example, Mbeumo is one of those guys. I'm going to keep him for this game against Leicester, but after that, you can see that he has pretty tough fixtures in general. Aston Villa away, Newcastle at home. I mean, these 2 games are not the worst. Chelsea away, Nottingham Forest at home, Brighton away. Like, it's not awful fixtures. Here is where the totally awful fixtures come. So maybe Mbeumo, if he starts playing more like he did previously in the season, where he's more central and more involved in play, maybe I want to keep him long term. But for what he's shown the last few game weeks, I'm pretty certain I'm going to sell him in game week 14, which is what we're going to get to now, basically. Game week 14, I have him. But actually, I don't have to sell him this week, because Fernandes is the one I want to sell. He has Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, and Man City in those 3 upcoming games. I don't think he looked that good under Amorim's system. I don't think Man United looked that good under Amorim's system for now. So that's another thing that could change. Maybe they look a lot better in this next upcoming match against Everton, and I get some doubts, and I want to keep Bruno Fernandes potentially for the game against Nottingham Forest. But for now, he's the player that I'm looking to sell. It's either him or Mbeumo, depending on who looks the worst in game week 13, basically. And the player that I want to bring in is something that entices me as a West Ham fan as well. It is Jared Bowen, who's actually like the 6th highest goal scoring or point scoring midfielder so far in FPL, which is kind of crazy to me because the West Ham have not looked that good currently, even though they are looking better in the table now after beating Newcastle. But yeah, he's gotten a lot of points from not the best matches and not the best form from West Ham. But if West Ham are going to get in better form now, which has taken some time under Lopetegui, but maybe there are signs now in the match against Newcastle especially that offensively at least they could have some things sorted out. So Bowen is really enticing because of the fixtures. As you can see, Leicester away, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Southampton away. Fantastic fixtures for him in the next 5 game weeks. And then he has tougher fixtures from game week 19 onwards. But that sort of suits me well as well, because I'm going to get to that eventually in this video, basically. But that even saves me some money doing Fernandes to Bowen, 3.1 million in the bank. And that gives me an opportunity to do some transfers further along in the season. Yeah, let's move on to game week 15 basically. And this is a game week where I have a lot of good players. You can see Mbeumo against Newcastle at home. I could bench him if he still looks as bad as he does currently. If he's showing some nice signs of form, I could do him in for Rodgers potentially. Because yeah, Cunha and Joao Pedro are just in too good of a form currently. Maybe if West Ham look a lot better defensively, I could bench Cunha and he drops off in form, but I don't really foresee that happening. So I think it's between Mbeumo or Rodgers for who I'm going to start in this game. This is also a midweek game for Rodgers, so there might be some rumblings that he's going to be benched for that game, and then it would make sense to either bench him or Watkins, depending on who out of those two needs a rest for this game for Mbeumo, who I think could be a really good player at home to Newcastle. That's actually a really good fixture, and I think he could be a differential because I think a lot of people are looking to sell him in game week 14 as well. So hopefully I get some nice answers there. And like I said, I would rather want to play Mykolenko rather than Lewis, but in this game week, Crystal Palace away for Lewis, Liverpool at home for Mykolenko. I think I would have to back Lewis in this instance, even though I don't want to. Maybe I can back Reeves against Bournemouth. Could do that rather than Lewis, because Lewis is looking pretty bad currently. Also comes down to Sanchez and Fabianski. Sanchez away to Spurs. I think that's just too bad of a fixture for him. Fabianski I would rather go with, even though I have Cunha. So yeah, those are just some of the things here. Also the captaincy, Salah against Everton away, not the best captaincy, I guess. I don't know. You always have to trust Salah, which is what I've learned from this past game week, I guess. And Liverpool against Everton, those games can provide any different result. Even though Everton have looked really good defensively currently, Liverpool could change that in an instance because we know how good they are in any game, basically. But I could be tempted to use the captaincy on Watkins, especially if he's certain to start, or potentially even Joao Pedro, but most likely going to stick with Salah. I think that's what I've learned from this past game week. But yeah, that's basically game week 15. Let's move on to game week 16, where I want to do some changes, not just for my starting goalkeeper, which would be Sanchez against Brentford at home rather than Fabianski against Bournemouth away. Too tough a fixture for Fabianski. There's actually 2 transfers that I want to do in this game week as well. And those 2 transfers would be Ollie Watkins playing against Forest away, which is a pretty tough match, and then City, which again, I don't know. Depends how Nottingham Forest and Man City look for the next few game weeks, but when I basically planned this out in the past, these games looked pretty difficult, but now they actually look pretty easy, especially seeing Nottingham Forest conceding 3 goals this past game week, and then they conceded 3 goals again. They conceded 3 goals in game week 11, I think, in the game against Newcastle, if I'm not mistaken, and then they conceded 3 goals against Arsenal now. So maybe they're not as impenetrable as they were previously in the season, but that has typically been a tough defensive game. The Man City game, I don't really expect Aston Villa to score that many goals either. Newcastle away is also typically a pretty tough game, but now we saw West Ham beat them now there, so maybe I want to keep Watkins actually. But for now, my transfer plan is still to bring in a player with even better matches, and that is Nicholas Jackson, who has Brentford at home this game week, and then just a sea of green fixtures, like really, really good fixtures. I really want Nicholas Jackson, but it's not really something that I need to do because they have still some tough-ish fixtures, Chelsea. But yeah, I think that looks like a really good fixture for him. It also gives me 4.2 in the bank. Rodgers plays against Nottingham Forest away. I don't really want to play him there either. I don't want to play Mbeumo against Chelsea either, but I want to sell Mbeumo and buy Bukayo Saka basically because I have enough money in the bank to do that. 1.5 million in the bank. So I'm using my 2 transfers there to bring in Saka against Everton. He plays also Crystal Palace and then Ipswich. Brentford is still a decent game. Brighton is still a decent game. Spurs is still a decent game as well, in my opinion, even though it's red here on this graphic here. But yeah, so that gives me Saka in. I would have Saka, Palmer, and Salah. I still don't have Haaland, which is going to be something that I'm going to address later on in the next few game weeks, potentially. So yeah, that's basically the the transfers that I'm going to do in Game Week 16. I think this team looks pretty good. Again, I have the thing where I have to start Lewis over Mykolenko because he plays Arsenal away. Mykolenko's fixtures are just terrible, sadly. But yeah, I wasted him on the bench for his easy fixtures, and now that he has really tough fixtures, I really wish I could start him rather than Lewis, which is the mistake that I've done. The opposite thing is the mistake that I've done the past few game weeks, basically. But yeah, that's my Game Week 16. I think I would go with Palmer as captain against Brentford at home. That's where he scored a lot of points last season, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, Brentford at home is usually a really good game for anyone in terms of attackers, at least. So yeah, that's Game Week 16. Moving on to Game Week 17. Again, have a pretty solid team in this game week. Captaincy, again, is a bit of a conundrum. Maybe if Cunha is still in that fantastic form that he is currently, maybe I go with him. Maybe I go with Saka against Crystal Palace. That has worked out in the past. Could still go with Salah, obviously. Spurs are typically pretty bad defensively, and they don't have their best goalkeeper now either in Vicario, so I could go with him as captain as well. I also could go with Palmer, but I don't think Everton away is that good of a fixture, so most likely I will go with Salah or Saka as my captain for this game week. And again, Mykolenko against Chelsea, not the best game, but maybe I would start him over Lewis, but most likely not, sadly. So my defense, I realize, is just not that good in general. But at the same time, I don't think there's that many good defenders to choose from either. There are some nice players. Guardiola is looking really offensively minded for Man City, but he's pretty expensive. You also have Urian Timber for Arsenal, who looks pretty good for his price. He's also a bit expensive. And I don't think I'd really want to do any defensive transfers. Maybe if Lewis doesn't play anymore, I would have to address this because Greaves is just not that good, and Mykolenko has really tough fixtures. So if Lewis loses his place, then maybe that will kind of mess up my plans a little bit. But yeah, I just have to live with it for now, I guess, and hope for the best when it comes to Lewis at least. Same with the goalkeeper. Maybe I want to start Fabianski over Sanchez, but at the same time, Everton don't really create that many chances or score that many chances. So I still think I would stick with Sanchez, even though he's been terrible for me so far in FPL, as Chelsea players normally are for me. Yeah, moving on to Game Week 18. Again, pretty solid fixtures. Salah against Leicester at home is an easy captaincy choice here, even though Saka plays against Ipswich at home as well. Palmer against Fulham at home is a decent fixture, but one against Southampton is fantastic. Nicholas Jackson, that's a good fixture for him. Brentford at home for Joao Pedro. Man United at home, maybe that's not the easiest for Cunha. Could make a case to sell Cunha here in this game week, but I have more plans for Game Week 19 pretty much. So I think I'm still going to stick with the team. Again, we have Mykolenko playing against a really tough team where I have to play Lewis if he keeps his place, which is still the big question mark. And probably the thing that's going to scupper all of my plans for these next upcoming game weeks in general. But yeah, let's move on to Game Week 19 because that's when I'm looking to make some pretty major moves. One of them being Cunha out because he has really tough fixtures. You can see from this point on, it's just terrible fixtures for Cunha. Even though he is in terrific form, I don't think Wolverhampton can survive those really tough fixtures. As we saw at the start of the season, they really struggled in those fixtures or those types of fixtures. And the player that I would want to get in at this point of time is most likely going to be Haaland because he just has a lot of good fixtures in this upcoming run. Leicester away, West Ham at home, Brentford away, Ipswich away. I think in some of those game weeks, I do really want to captain him because I think he's going to start scoring at some point. He scored twice now in the Champions League as well. He keeps scoring for Norway. It's just in the Premier League, he's struggling for some reason. But while City have some tough-ish matches the next few game weeks, and I have some really good captaincy options the next few game weeks, I don't think it's that pressing of an issue. This is probably where I would bring in Haaland, even though I do have some good captaincy picks here as well. I could potentially wait for Game Week 9 or Game Week 20 as well to do this. I don't have to do this in this game week. But I feel like this is also a decent jumping off point for Bowen and Saka. You can see Saka here has tougher-ish fixtures at least. Like, still decent fixtures, but not the best. Like, none of these fixtures like stand out entirely, but depends what happens especially. But this is like Game Week 19 is leading into the new year basically. So maybe things have changed by then. But yeah, I'm looking to bring or sell Bowen and bring in a decent player. This is actually a really good jumping on point for Emil Smith-Rowe, who has Bournemouth at home in this game week, and then Ipswich at home, West Ham away, Leicester away, and then some decent fixtures after that as well. Okay fixtures at least. So I think that's a pretty good jumping on point for Smith-Rowe. But I still need to save a lot of money, as you can see, 5.3 in the bank. And the way I would have to bring that in is not selling Salah or Palmer because they're really good fixtures, but selling Saka again. I'm going to use him for the 3 game weeks before that, which are really, really good. But in this game week, I would have to sell him and bring in someone really, really cheap. Only 4.9. And I think currently my answer is Devaney from Crystal Palace, who basically scored and played really well for Crystal Palace, a youngster who's only 4.5. Probably bring in someone that I could just bench for most game weeks here. But I can also just start Rodgers because he has really good fixtures from this point onwards. As you can see, really nice fixtures for Aston Villa. Which is also why I'm potentially tempted to, rather than doing these transfers and getting Devaney for Saka and the likes, or basically, yeah, I can just keep Saka if I want to keep Saka at this point. I can, rather than getting Haaland, I can target someone a bit cheaper who's still a really good player with a lot of good fixtures, and that's Watkins. I have enough money in the bank to do that as well, and it would also save me one transfer, just in case I need to address the Lewis thing as well, especially. But I do really want to have Haaland, especially for the next few game weeks after that, because as you can see here, West Ham at home for Man City when Crystal Palace away. Not the worst fixture, that's still decent. Salah against Man United at home. Maybe I can survive without Haaland in this game week as well as someone that's not the captaincy option. But I think West Ham at home is pretty much one of the best fixtures you can ask for Haaland, because he just keeps destroying West Ham every single game. So ideally, I would have Haaland in Game Week 19. That is what I'm currently looking at. That's what I'm currently hoping to do, I think, because I think Haaland could also be a really good differential. Most people are selling him now because he's just been really, really struggling the last few game weeks. So it would be a really nice differential to have, I guess, to have Haaland at this point. Could even captain this game week, but I most likely would go with one of these guys instead. Most likely Salah, but maybe Haaland. Could always choose him. But when Salah has a good fixture, you should probably captain him, basically. Game week 20, Man United at home. I probably would have to stick with Salah because he just keeps killing Man United, but maybe Amorim has turned Man United around at this point, and they look really good and really solid defensively, especially. So maybe I want to go with Haaland as captain here, because that is a really good game week to captain him in, basically. So yeah, I'm not going to do any transfers for the next few game weeks, but I just want to look through the team and what I have in store, even if I don't do any transfers. I still think it looks pretty good, apart from the defense, obviously, which is still looking not too good, especially with Lewis, who is still a big question mark in the team. But as long as he keeps his place for Man City and plays most games, which he has done in the absence of Rodri, I shouldn't be too worried, basically. But yeah, this is basically the team that I'm looking for. And then Haaland against Brentford away. I think that is potentially the best captaincy option. But again, Palmer has a decent fixture. So Haaland is by no means necessary to bring in for Game Week 19, 18 even. He has a good fixture. 18, 19... 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 are really good fixtures, and then he has a really tough run, and then at the end of the season he has a really, really good run with a lot of good fixtures. So yeah, there's no necessity to bring in Haaland in Game Week 19, but I think it's going to be a really nice differential, so I'm going to try to do that. But as you can see here, you do actually have some decent captaincy options in Salah and Palmer for most of these game weeks anyway. Even Game Week 22, Wolves at home. Wolves away is where Palmer had a lot of points earlier in the season. So that could still be a really good captaincy choice. But again, Haaland against Ipswich, we know what happened with him against Ipswich last time. He scored a hat-trick. So again, it's probably ideal to get Haaland at this point, to have him for these really good matches. But yeah, it's going to be... I just have to look at the form for Salah and Palmer. If Salah's form continues, Palmer picks up his form, I don't think bringing in Haaland is a must by any means. And I would potentially just have to go with Watkins instead and have him. Also, like I said previously, in these past few game weeks where I sell Watkins in game week 16, if these fixtures against Nottingham Forest, Man City, and Newcastle look better than what I expected at least a couple game weeks ago, then maybe I could just keep him for this run. For like, if these three fixtures are really good as well, then he has just like a sea of really, really, really good fixtures for the for the foreseeable future, Watkins. So maybe I just keep him for game week 16 onwards. But I really want to get in Jackson because he just has tremendous fixtures for a long while, basically. So yeah, I'm still leaning towards selling Watkins at this point. Might bring him back for Game Week 19 rather than Cunha, but also Haaland is enticing, especially if he's looking back to his best and scoring a lot of goals for fun. He could be a really nice captain's option for these upcoming game weeks here. As you can see, most of these game weeks he has a really, really good fixture where you want to captain him in, pretty much. But yeah, Game 23 as well. Chelsea at home. This is where Man City's fixtures start to turn for the worse, and that's when I'm probably going to look to sell Haaland and spread the money around, get someone in rather than Smith Rowe, for example, get in someone rather than Devaney, depending on if he plays or not at this point. Matthias Franza as well from Crystal Palace could also be fit and ready to play at this point of the season. Maybe even Oscar Bob for City in those previously good matches, but I think the latest from Pep there is that he's going to be out until January, February. So probably going to have to wait a little bit longer to get Oscar Bob goodness from FPL this season pretty much. But yeah, those are some of my plans, at least for the next upcoming game weeks. Again, a lot can change. For example, for me, like I mentioned a couple times, if Lewis all of a sudden loses his place as a starter for City, I have to address that because Mykolenko and Greaves just isn't good enough to survive or keep me afloat basically defensively for the next 3 game weeks in FPL pretty much. But yeah, those are my plans as of right now. I hope you enjoyed the video. I also hope you are encouraged to send in your FPL ID so I can do the same thing with your team, preferably with a team that looks a bit different to mine. Maybe if you have a wildcard left especially, that would be really nice to see like different ways you can handle that as well. So yeah, however your team is, send it in and I'll take a look at it. And obviously I can't do too many teams because as I showed you with this plan for my own team here, it takes quite a lot of time. So I can only do pretty much 3, potentially 4 or 5 teams if I have time. So yeah, the quicker you are to post your FPL ID, the better, I guess. But I'm also going to take a look at your teams individually. If your team looks exactly like mine, and you have 1 free transfer and 2.1 in the bank like I did, or 2.2 in the bank that I have, then yeah, I'm probably going to be a bit less interested in going through your team on a video for me on this YouTube channel basically. But yeah, for all of that, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. I've gone past 900 now at least. So yeah, getting closer and closer to that goal. I also hope to be a more consistent content creator because I have been sort of, I don't know, the last few weeks I've been struggling both. It's been international break. I was also sick, so making videos was just not the best idea, especially with my voice that keeps crumbling under the pressure when I'm sick. My throat can't handle speaking for that much, pretty much when I'm sick. But yeah, I'm hoping to do more as content creator, potentially making like shorts, TikToks potentially, and stuff in the future. Also hoping to do some more out of the norm videos like this one and the video that I'm going to do later in the week with your guys' teams basically. But with all that said, thank you for watching this time. See you next time. Bye bye.